Most people lose before they even begin. Not because they're weak, not because they lack talent, but because they walk into the game already exposed. They enter conversations trying to be liked. They step into competition trying to be fair. They start negotiations hoping to be understood. And that's exactly why they lose. The defeat doesn't happen at the end. It happens in the opening move. Before the first word is spoken, before the first offer is made, before the first conflict appears, the outcome is already leaning in someone else's favor. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He warned that those who enter power dynamics without calculation, without positioning, and without leverage are not brave, they are vulnerable. And vulnerability in competitive environments is quickly exploited. Most people think winning is about effort. It's not. It's about positioning. It's about what you reveal, what you react to, what you allow. In this video, you'll see why people sabotage themselves before the game even starts. You'll understand the subtle mistakes that quietly strip away authority and the strategic shift that changes everything before the first move is even made. Because once you recognize how people lose early, you stop being one of them. If you want to think strategically instead of emotionally, subscribe now, not for motivation, but for clarity. Because in real power dynamics, the person who prepares correctly before the beginning rarely loses at the end. Now watch closely, because the mistake most people make is the one they never see coming. They enter to be liked. Most people walk into a room with one silent objective. Do they like me? That question alone has already weakened them. When your priority is approval, you unconsciously surrender leverage. You adjust your tone, you soften your opinions, you laugh a little louder, you agree a little faster. You reveal just enough to seem relatable. And in doing so, you hand control to the room. Because the person seeking approval is not setting the frame, they are adapting to it. This is the first way people lose before they begin. They enter negotiations trying to be agreeable. They enter leadership trying to be friendly. They enter competition trying to be accepted. But power does not grow from approval. It grows from position. Machiavelli understood that rulers who desperately wanted to be loved became dependent on public opinion, and dependency is weakness. When you need validation, others sense it even if you never say it out loud. Approval seeking creates subtle behaviors. You over-explain. You justify your boundaries. You hesitate before disagreeing. You avoid necessary conflict, and the room reads it instantly. Here is the uncomfortable truth. People do not respect those who try to be liked. They respect those who are internally settled, those who would prefer respect over applause. The moment your focus shifts from, "Do they like me?" to, "Am I positioned correctly?" everything changes. You speak less, but with intention. You don't rush to fill silence. You don't immediately defend yourself. You don't chase reactions. And something interesting happens. The energy shifts. When you stop seeking approval, people start assessing you differently. They lean in. They measure their words. They become slightly more careful. Because you are no longer signaling need. And need is what makes you predictable. But here's where it becomes dangerous, and most people never see this part coming. When you enter to be liked, you don't just lose authority. You reveal your pressure points. And once someone knows what you want, they know how to move you. In the next chapter, we'll break down the second mistake, the one that quietly gives others the blueprint to control you before you even realize it's happening. They reveal too much. Once someone enters the room seeking approval, the next mistake happens naturally. They start talking, not strategically, not selectively, but impulsively. They reveal their goals too early. They share their frustrations too openly. They expose their ambitions without calculation, and they call it honesty. But in competitive environments, unfiltered transparency is not virtue, it is vulnerability. The moment people understand what you want, they understand how to control you. If they know you crave recognition, they can withhold it. If they know you fear exclusion, they can threaten it. If they know you're desperate for opportunity, they can make you overcommit for it. Information is leverage, and most people give it away for free. Machiavelli warned that a ruler must guard his intentions carefully, not because secrecy is evil, but because predictability invites manipulation. The more others understand your motivations, the easier it becomes to steer your behavior. And here's the subtle danger. Revealing too much feels powerful. It feels confident to say, "Here's exactly what I'm planning." It feels bold to declare your strategy. It feels authentic to explain your emotions. But confidence without discretion is self-sabotage. The strongest players in any environment speak less about their plans and more about present actions. They observe before they declare. They ask before they answer. They let others expose themselves first. Because once you speak, you cannot retract the leverage you've given away. Think about it. In negotiations, the first person to reveal their bottom line loses advantage. In conflict, the first person to show emotional investment loses composure. In competition, the first person to declare their move becomes predictable. And predictability is the beginning of defeat. Silence, on the other hand, creates tension. When people don't fully understand your motives, they hesitate, they guess, they test, and while they are trying to decode you, you are studying them. That is positioning. But revealing too much is only part of the problem. Because even when people keep their plans hidden, they still make one fatal mistake. They assume the game is fair. And that assumption costs them more than anything else. They play fair in an unfair game. After revealing too much, most people make an even more dangerous assumption. They believe everyone else is playing by the same rules. They assume honesty will be met with honesty. They assume loyalty guarantees loyalty. They assume effort will be rewarded fairly. And that belief blinds them. The world is not purely evil, but it is strategic. And strategy does not always look like fairness. When you enter competitive environments, business, leadership, social hierarchies, negotiations, you are not stepping into a classroom, you are stepping into a power structure. Some people are calculating, some are opportunistic, some are patient, some are ruthless. And if you insist on playing a moral fantasy while others are playing for advantage, you become easy to outmaneuver. Machiavelli observed that leaders who relied solely on virtue were often destroyed by those willing to act decisively when necessary. He did not glorify cruelty, he exposed reality. The mistake is not being ethical. The mistake is being naive. Playing fair in an unfair game looks like this. You disclose your limits while they hide theirs. You negotiate transparently while they anchor strategically. You forgive repeated slights while they record your reactions. You assume goodwill while they test your boundaries. And by the time you realize what is happening, you're already reacting instead of positioning. Fairness without awareness creates imbalance. This does not mean you abandon your values. It means you understand the environment before committing to a strategy. Power dynamics reward awareness, not innocence. The strongest individuals understand two things at once. They know how they operate, and they know others may operate differently. That dual awareness is protection. Because once you recognize that not everyone is playing fair, you stop being shocked by strategy. You stop overreacting to calculated moves. You stop exposing your frustration when someone attempts to corner you. Instead, you adjust. You become measured. You anticipate leverage plays. You avoid emotional reactions. And that's where most people make their next mistake. Once they realize the game isn't fair, they become reactive. They argue. They defend. They escalate emotionally. And in doing so, they lose the one thing that still protected them: position. In the next chapter, we'll break down why reacting, even when you're right, is often the fastest way to surrender control. Before we move further, if you're getting value from this, tap like and subscribe. It tells me you need more videos like this. They react instead of position. The moment pressure appears, most people abandon strategy. They react. A comment challenges them, they defend. A competitor provokes them, they respond immediately. An opportunity shifts, they scramble to adjust out loud. And in that instant, they surrender position. Reaction feels powerful because it feels active. You are doing something, you are answering, you are pushing back. But reaction is almost always emotional movement inside someone else's frame. Positioning is different. Positioning is quiet. Positioning is deliberate. Positioning happens before tension rises, not after. When you react, you allow the other person to dictate tempo. They create the stimulus, you provide the response. That alone places them one step ahead. Machiavelli understood that rulers who moved only in response to events were never truly in control. The leader who waits to be provoked is already behind the one who set the conditions. Look closely at how people lose authority. Someone questions their competence, they rush to explain. Someone disrespects them, they escalate emotionally. Someone challenges their value, they begin proving it. Each response seems justified. Each reaction feels necessary. But every one of them signals something subtle. You are affected. And when others see what affects you, they discover how to move you. Positioning requires restraint. Instead of reacting to criticism, you observe who benefits from it. Instead of immediately countering a move, you assess its intention. Instead of defending your reputation, you let your consistency speak. This creates tension, and tension creates power. When you do not react as expected, people hesitate. They recalibrate. They wonder whether their move worked. That pause gives you space, and space is where strategy lives. Reaction collapses space. Position expands it. The strongest individuals understand timing. They know that not every provocation deserves a reply. Not every accusation deserves defense. Not every challenge deserves engagement. Sometimes the most dominant move is no visible move at all. Because when you refuse to play on someone else's emotional timeline, you shift the structure of the interaction. And here is the final truth most people miss. Positioning is not about silence alone. It is about calculated presence. It is about knowing when to step forward and when to let others overextend themselves. In the final chapter, we'll examine what happens when you master this balance and why, at that point, most conflicts never even reach you. They start without leverage. Most people lose before they begin because they enter situations empty-handed. No leverage. No positioning, no advantage, just hope. They walk into negotiations needing approval. They enter partnerships without alternatives. They pursue opportunities without scarcity. They start conversations already emotionally invested. And the moment you need something, you lose power over it. Leverage is not aggression. It is not manipulation. It is not dominance. Leverage is optionality. It is the ability to walk away. Machiavelli understood this principle clearly. The one who depends least controls most. When your survival, reputation, or validation depends on someone else's decision, your behavior changes. You become agreeable, flexible, over-accommodating, subtly desperate, and desperation is visible. You may believe you're hiding it, but people feel when you cannot afford to lose the interaction. They sense when you need the deal, the approval, the alliance, or the outcome more than they do. And once that imbalance is detected, the terms shift. Suddenly, you concede more. You tolerate more. You justify more. Because walking away feels too costly. That is starting without leverage. Powerful individuals prepare before they engage. Before negotiating, they create alternatives. Before committing, they assess dependency. Before investing emotionally, they evaluate position. They do not rely on confidence alone. They build structural strength. Leverage can be many things. Information others don't have. Skills that are difficult to replace. Access to opportunities beyond the current one. Reputation that precedes you. Time and patience when others feel urgency. When you possess leverage, your posture changes. You speak slower. You agree less quickly. You ask better questions. You do not rush to fill silence. Because you are not afraid of losing the interaction. And here is the deeper layer most people overlook. Leverage is strongest when it is invisible. If you advertise your alternatives, you weaken them. If you threaten to walk away, you reveal that you are thinking about it. True leverage is quiet confidence in your ability to detach. This is why most people lose before they begin. They rush in seeking validation instead of advantage. They try to impress instead of assess. They try to win favor instead of building options. By the time they realize the imbalance, the structure is already set. And structures are far harder to change than conversations. Those who understand this never enter empty-handed. They enter prepared. And that changes everything. Most people think they lose because they weren't strong enough. But now, you see the truth. They lose because they walk in exposed. They enter to be liked. They reveal too much. They assume fairness. They react instead of position. And worst of all, they start without leverage. The defeat doesn't happen at the end. It happens in the beginning. But once you recognize these patterns, something shifts. You stop chasing approval. You speak less strategically. You observe before engaging. You build leverage before stepping into the arena. And suddenly, outcomes change not because you became louder, but because you became prepared. That is the difference between playing the game and understanding it. If this changed the way you see power dynamics, subscribe now, not for motivation but for strategy. Every video is designed to sharpen your awareness so you stop losing before you even start. And comment below, I move with leverage. Because from this point forward, you don't enter rooms hoping to win. You enter position to. If you haven't watched my previous video, the moment they understand you, the game is over Machiavelli, you're missing the foundation that make this video more effective. Think of this video as strategy. That one is your armor. You'll find it linked below and on the end screen.